Sometimes I wish everyone was just happy and kind to each other. But then again, if I spend a day just relaxing and doing nice things, then I enjoy that, but I do feel an itch and a yearning in my soul to do more, to explore more, to get soul expansion and to help others more. So I understand why the universe hasn't been created to just be uniformly nice. I love life and want to taste more of it. I'm not specifically married to doing one particular activity, but I do want to do something. I guess humans just always want to see the next horizon. Question: what do you think Earth humans' primary illusions are? Answer: that they're alone. I understand why it seems that way to you, but if you could clearly perceive the unseen realms, you might feel overwhelmed with love and support. Another illusion is that people think they're a body and a brain. Even those who rationally understand that they're a soul, or that they're source, often haven't truly integrated that. A lot of suffering comes from that. That healing emotionally and being at peace or in spiritual bliss is easy for others but not for them. In reality, healing emotionally and growing spiritually is just a long road, and other Earth humans often aren't very open about their struggles, while they are very open about their peak moments. So most likely there actually isn't something wrong with you. Most likely you aren't the one person who isn't able to figure it out. It's just a long road, that's all. So keep moving forward and your life will improve. Historically that has been a slow process, but with the rising energies, it's a somewhat faster process than it used to be. Is that less than ideal? Yes, it is. Now yes, there will always be people who are more gifted and luckier than you, but then again there are also people less gifted and less lucky than you. And even if you are not the most gifted or luckiest person on earth, that doesn't mean you can't build a decent life for yourself. Question: what do you recommend to Earth humans? Answer: the most important advice has been communicated already. Whatever arises in you, observe that. And if you don't dare observe because it hurts too much or you fear it will destabilize you, then consider visiting a psychologist or healer. Trust your intuition, but don't label fears or emotions as intuition. If you don't know the difference, then don't cling too tightly to one perspective and observe more. Look inwards before you point the finger outwards. Look inwards before you try to reshape society in a certain way. Be kind and express love and appreciation towards others. It matters more than you might think it does. The first key is love, and then after a certain point it becomes important to also integrate strength and wisdom. Do some kind of spiritual practice that resonates with you. For example, breathe in deeply and slowly and think I, then breathe out deeply and slowly and think AM. And repeat. Earth is crazy unfair. So especially on Earth, it's not reasonable to judge yourself against some arbitrary standard. There's no actual basis in reality for why you would need to meet a certain standard before you're good enough. Even if someone else is very accomplished, there's no basis in reality for why you need to be at that point too. Judging yourself against arbitrary standards is just an echo of how you were judged against arbitrary standards as a child. That might actually have been traumatic for you, perhaps to the point where you're still replaying that trauma by judging yourself today. Question: how do you feel about the situation on Earth? Answer: if I look at the situation from a high perspective, I feel good about it because overall your world is returning to the light, and that is the most important thing, and it is amazing. Frankly, 10,000 years from now, what people will say is that it was fantastic that Earth returned to the light. 10,000 years from now, the delay and length of the process will just be a footnote. You can all be proud of the amazing work you've done and are doing. However, if I look at the situation from a lower perspective, then I sometimes feel a pang of guilt. Being spiritually advanced doesn't mean that the so-called negative things aren't there anymore. Being spiritually advanced isn't exclusionary. Instead, being spiritually advanced means that you include everything. And it means that while the so-called negative things are still there, you don't resist them and therefore you don't suffer. And also, you have multiple perspectives that you can look at the world with. But still, why guilt? Well, certain mistakes have been made on our end, such as underestimating just how dark the situation on Earth was, and just how unwilling your leaders are to work for the common good even if it's in their own clear self-interest. And that has excessively dragged out this liberation process. To be blunt, I'm very used to dealing with people who are selfish yet rational. Basically, you deal with those people by creating a situation and incentives where it's in their rational self-interest to cooperate and behave non-destructively, and then you let them make their own choices. You don't push them too hard, because then they feel threatened and they might make the destructive choice just to spite you and assert their independence. So the idea is to just create incentives and then back off and give them some time and let them come to the obvious conclusion that the cooperative choice is optimal even for their own self-interest. When dealing with selfish galactic races, that approach works very well. But this approach has proven to not work at all with your leaders. Your leaders, from our perspective, are insane. Even when presented with circumstances and incentives where it's very clearly in their own rational self-interest to cooperate, most of them still don't do it, because their own ego is so out of control that it doesn't let them pursue their rational self-interest. It's strange to see people who are so captured by their own ego that they don't even have the discipline to act in their own rational self-interest. They're metaphorically possessed by the spirit of destruction and separation. Even for example, reptilians are more rational than your leaders. With reptilians, the problem is just that they perceive a very small chance of complete galactic domination as worth pursuing, even if the overwhelming chance is that they'll fail and suffer unnecessarily. Basically, they have a very weird set of priorities. They're like gamblers who are willing to put everything on the line for a small chance of a huge payout. Whereas there is a 0% chance that your leaders will win, and they know that, and yet they continue walking down a path towards destruction. They're so busy with trying to delay their loss of control that they don't stop and think that just delaying things doesn't help if they're guaranteed to lose in the end. Besides, it's not like they're currently enjoying their life. But of course, it's my fault that I didn't realize this sooner. Let me take this opportunity to formally apologize for that. That said, this still doesn't mean we're going to land today. There are still good reasons to take certain steps and do certain operations before we land, and those take some time still. And actually, most souls of Earth humans agree that a few steps should be taken first before we land. So we're not being paternalistic here or violating your free will. We're just heeding the advice and the wishes of the actual you, namely the souls of Earth humans. That said, people reading this message are more likely to have souls that do want to physically meet us as soon as possible. And I empathize. But then again, you're the minority. The situation is very complex, and all choices have lots of secondary and tertiary effects. For example, you might be tempted to say, okay, the souls of average people want this process to go on for a bit longer. Fine. But then just beam me up. However, average people need you light workers and awakened people to keep the energy of the earth somewhat stable and livable. And if we beamed you up and then beamed you back down after a few days, you might be more miserable than before at having to live on earth. And not all, but a lot of the things people are struggling with actually are open invitations to learn critical lessons or do those tough things that people know they should do. So it wouldn't always be in your interest if other people simply removed you from the situation you're in. Keep in mind that the energy of Earth is rising very rapidly, which means that taking personal action to improve your life is easier than it has ever been, at least once you stabilize yourself in the new higher energies. And society will rapidly move towards a new, higher, more peaceful, and ease-filled way of life. Question: what message do you have for the people of Earth? Answer: you are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You will be free, and you will once again meet us, and remember. You are fundamentally safe, because you are a reincarnating soul that can't be harmed. We're not the hero of this story. You are. You likely have already done so much more than you are consciously aware of. And you can do much more, especially together with other Earth humans, than you realize right now. Your world is also much closer to the tipping point towards the light than you might realize. Aren't you sensing the energies, or seeing how much the Epstein scandal is waking people up. Aren't you noticing that even many average people have realized that people in power often aren't to be trusted? This period too shall pass. And then we shall have a celebration and a meeting for the ages. I see that the channeler is out of questions, and it is in resonance for me to return to my duties. I appreciated this conversation. With all my love, and until we meet, Ashtar.